What's going on out there? It's Larry coming to you again with another Blazers Sports Report. Right now, the Eastern second round is set, so I'm going to give y'all a preview for that. Eastern Conference second round matchups. We got the Indiana Pacers taking on the Miami Heat, and we have the Chicago Bulls not in the second round, getting knocked out by the Philadelphia 76ers, and they will go on to face the Boston Celtics. Now, let me start with this Celtics-Sixers matchup. Now, both teams have been great defensively for all season long pretty much, and this last series with Chicago really showed how good defensively Philadelphia is. Now we all know that Chicago has had problems scoring when Derrick Rose isn't on the court, and even when he is on the court. But it's unfortunate. Derrick Rose, we know, went out with the ACL. Luol Deng was hurt all series long. Joakim Noah, he went down. The Bulls had their problems, but it's still no excuse for Carlos Boozer, the man they signed in the offseason 2 years ago, to not show up in the final game of the series. But outside of that, good year for the Chicago Bulls. Now they get ousted by the Sixers, and they take on the Boston Celtics team, who struggled mightily, I might add, with this Atlanta Hawk team outside of, I think it was Game 4, when they actually blew them out the building. Now, they blew them out the building, but that was Al Horford's first game back from injury, so it's a little bit excusable right now. But they have made some mistakes. Rondo did have a 1-game suspension after Game 1 and all that other stuff. But here's the thing with that series. Philadelphia is athletic enough to contend with the guys on the perimeter of the Boston Celtics. They're younger, they're hungrier. Thaddeus Young is a growing boy. Andre Iguodala, he's strong enough to contend with Paul Pierce. I don't know if he's as smart as Paul Pierce is, especially defending Paul Pierce, because we know how crafty Pierce is with the ball. But the main matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing is Rajon Rondo taking on Jrue Holiday. Now, Rondo, we know if he had a jump shot, he'd be the best point guard in the NBA, hands down. The man creates so many opportunities for this Boston Celtics team that it's pretty much the team goes as Rajon Rondo goes. I don't know how to say the man's name, Rajon, I don't know. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm looking at this matchup, Evan Turner has stepped his game up considerably. Considering where he was when everybody was starting to label him as a bust. But when you look at this Sixers team, they're riding a wave of emotion right now that is very high. They haven't been here before. This is their first experience getting into the next round. When you look at the young guys on teams, the Lou Williams, Jrue Holidays, the Iguodalas, all those guys, they're still a very young team in terms of playoff experience. Boston has been there before. We know what Boston is capable of. But after seeing how Boston struggled with Atlanta in that series, because we know that the Bulls without Derrick Rose is still a formidable force. Granted, they didn't have Noah the last 2 games, but those guys still showed up to play. They came, they played hard. You know that Boston is going to show up to play too, especially when you got Kevin Garnett back there. He's going to make sure that these guys are ready to go. Now, when I look at the matchups per se, I don't really think anybody really has an advantage except Kevin Garnett with Spencer Hawes. But the thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that Spencer Hawes basically plays the same style of game that Kevin Garnett does. He plays that pick and pop. He gets in the paint when necessary, but he's more comfortable on the perimeter than he is down low. Now, he didn't have a good game the last game, the closeout game, but I honestly think that Jrue Holiday, still young, 21 years old, still growing. In order for the Sixers to win this series, he's going to have to outplay Rajon Rondo on both ends of the court. Jrue Holiday has already been labeled as a good defender, a great defender for his position. But you're going up against a group of guys who have been there. They know what it takes. They know this is their last chance. This is their last hurrah, if you will. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they get there. And Philly, being young, they're going to have to rely on that hunger, that intensity that drives them to go forward especially now that you actually have the Philly fans on your side. When the actual games come back to Philly, they will be more welcoming to you, and we know that Philly fans are probably the most passionate fans in all the sports. So when Boston comes to town, you know that they're going to boo, they're going to rile up, they're going to stand behind those Sixers, and they're going to feed off of that energy. Now, in order for the Sixers to win, just like every team that doesn't have home court advantage, they have to still win on the road. And I think the better one to steal on the road for the Sixers will be Game 2 rather than Game 1. Because you steal Game 2, you have even more energy heading back home to Philadelphia, where you know you're going home to a great crowd that will support you, especially a guy like Andre Iguodala, who's been there through the final days of Allen Iverson and through the bad years when everybody was like, is he really the guy that's going to be there for this team? Well, Iguodala has stepped his game up. He's finally in the second round. Now we got to see if he can really carry this team. He has a veteran on his side with Elton Brand, but we'll see how far that goes. Now, moving on to the second matchup, the Indiana. Well, hold up. Before I can go on to the Pacers Heat, I think that Boston's experience will probably help propel them past the Sixers. It wouldn't shock me if this one was another 6-game series. Like I said, Philly is a young, hungry team. They're athletic enough to contend. They have. I would give their bench the advantage. With Lou Williams coming off the bench, I believe Thaddeus Young comes off the bench. I would give them the advantage in terms of bench play, but you never know how these things are going to go. It is the NBA playoffs. Now, moving on to the Heat and the Pacers. Frank Vogel has done an outstanding job with this Indiana Pacers team. There's no doubt about it. He should. We all know that Greg Popovich won Coach of the Year, but the man needed serious consideration, in my opinion, for Coach of the Year. What he has done with this team, Paul George, Danny Granger, David West, Roy Hibbert, Darren Collison is accepting the role coming off the bench. George Hill is across the board, there are so many guys. They're like, in my opinion, they are not there yet, but as I watch them, the depth of their team reminds me a lot of the San Antonio Spurs, where they have just so many pieces that it's a lot harder to contend with these guys than a lot of people think. Now, do I think they will beat the Miami Heat? That's a very valid question, because honestly, when I look at this Miami Heat team, it's LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. Chris Bosh is sometimes there. You got 2 Hall of Famers. You have a star. I'm not going to call him a superstar. I never thought that Chris Bosh was a superstar. He played in Toronto, where he was the team, but now he's with other guys. He's relegated to a role player, which is a role that suits him a lot better. Now, Chris Bosh got outplayed by Amari Stoudemire in a couple of those games in that New York Knicks series. When I look at what this team is going up against with this Indiana Pacers team, they're going up against a well-coached team. When I look at Miami, this is one of those coaching situations where you're like, is Eric Spoelstra really coaching this team, or is the talent level of LeBron James helping him get by the same way you did with Mike Brown in Cleveland? To me, Eric Spoelstra, I've never thought of him as being a top flight coach. I mean, we know he's there because he's been in the Miami organization for many years. He started out in the video room. We all know the story. But Eric Spoelstra, to me, I think that when it comes to actually coaching these guys to believing in what he does, I don't think it resonates with the rest of the team. Now, when I look at guys, I mean, you know D-Wade has his back, you know Haslam has his back, because they've been in the organization ever since they've come into the league. But when it comes into, in terms of buying into the system, defensively, yes, I think that most of the defensive things that they buy into is predicated by what LeBron James and D-Wade do in terms of help defense, because D-Wade is an outstanding defender. LeBron is athletically gifted. I'm not going to call him an outstanding defender, but the man's athleticism makes up for a lot of other people's mistakes. But I think in order for this series to be competitive, especially for the Indiana Pacers, Frank Vogel is going to have to coach the best coaching job he's ever done in his entire career thus far. When I look at excuse me. When I look at excuse me. Hopefully that's the last one. When I look at what Frank Vogel has done with his team thus far, there's no doubt in my mind that he can propel this Pacers team past to limits where they can push themselves even more. Danny Granger is a veteran. He's probably looked at as the guy on this team, even though Paul George is emerging. But those two guys on the perimeter are very athletic, and while James and Wade will have their hands full with these guys, just like I said in the last series with the Magic, Roy Hibbert is going to have to play a dominating role for this team. Roy Hibbert, in my opinion, he can dominate Turioff. He can dominate Haslam. If Joel Anthony comes in there, he can dominate him too. The man is 7'1", if I'm not mistaken. And that outstretched arm, the man has a soft touch with both hands. If he plays around the post, we all know David West is going to get in anybody's face that comes his way. David West was absolutely balling in that last series. He's hungry. Roy Hibbert is still learning. Danny Granger, this is the stage for him to propel himself as the man on his team. Paul George has been playing outstanding. That team is so well glued together that when you look at what the Heat have in terms of glue guys, it's not like you can actually say they have like that camaraderie, that teammate chemistry that the Pacers have. The Pacers are the actual team coming into this. When you interpret guys who actually play on a team. Like I said, in this series, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot more competitive than a lot of people give it credit for, but I think the Heat will move on. I think this has the potential to go 7 games for the simple fact, at home in Indiana, those guys are absolutely insane. That Indiana crowd, we know they love the game of basketball, and they've finally got a chance to cheer on their Pacers in a good light now, since the Reggie Miller years. I think that this is going to be a team game versus a Stars game, because if I look at it, in my opinion, Mario Chalmers he's not going to be able to stop both Darren Collison and George Hill. And if Barbosa comes in and he plays there, he's not going to be able to keep up with Barbosa. Barbosa is still one of the fastest guys in the league. Tyler Hansbrough, he's going to come with so much energy that's all the man knows how to go. He knows how to go one gear, and that's full gear. Roy Hibbert is going to have to dominate this game. But when you look at the flip side of things, we all know that the Miami Heat go as LeBron James goes. Even though it's still Wade's team, LeBron James is the catalyst that makes that cog. He's the key cog in the machine that keeps everybody going. Do I think that there will be some setbacks for this team? I don't know. They may have a letdown. They should have swept New York. There was no excuse for that. But the Miami Heat, they're going to have to come and play the best team game that they've played in quite a while in order to contend with these guys. Because David West, like I said, man was a beast. We know that he's going to bang inside. We know he's going to battle inside. We know what he's going to bring to the table. And I think that David West is going to be one of the key reasons. I think that he's going to be the X factor for this team. He's going to have to bully Chris Bosh on the inside. He's going to have to make Chris Bosh work. He's going to have to put that wiry frame in pain, basically. He's going to have to bang Chris Bosh. He's going to have to beat him up so much that on the defensive end, that when it comes down to him wanting to get his shot on the offensive end, that he's actually relegated to not wanting to take the shots because he's working so hard on the opposite end. David West, to me, is going to be the catalyst in there, because LeBron James is going to be on Danny Granger. Wade is going to be guarding Paul George. Those guys are going to have to work as hard as they can to negate as much as they can from Wade and James. That I think their offense is going to probably be a little bit limited as well. Kind of the same way that we seen Joe Johnson and Paul Pierce, how they had to work hard against each other, even though Paul Pierce had the much better series. The way that games go, you cancel so much out of each other on one end that you have to work twice as hard on another end in order to make up for what you've done on the opposite end of the court. So I honestly think that Wade, James, Granger, and George, they're going to be working so hard to stop each other that the offense is going to come, but is it going to come on a consistent basis? We know that guys show up and they disappear. Just look at the Lakers. But this series, Roy Hibbert is going to have to dominate in order for the Pacers to win. David West is going to have to bang Chris Bosh, make him work hard on the defensive end. And I think that ultimately the point guards for the Pacers can actually fuel this team to victories in this game. Their bench can probably win them 2 games. So we'll see how this all goes. We know Battier's coming off the bench. He's a defender. Mike Miller's coming off the bench. I don't know who they've been using as the backup point guard for the Miami Heat, but this series is going to be tough. It's going to be entertaining. I think fireworks are going to fly in this series because I think that ultimately when you look at these two teams, Frank Vogel is going to have to coach. David West has to get Chris Bosh to work, and the point guards for the Pacers have to step their game up. We know what Wade and James are going to give you. That's a given, but this is going to be a tightly contested series than a lot of people want to give credit for. One man can make a difference in the game of basketball in terms of the outcome of a game, and I think that David West is going to have to be that guy for the Indiana Pacers. So I'm predicting the Miami Heat 7 games. I think this series will go 7 games. Miami Heat in 7, simply because LeBron James and these guys, they need this series in order to solidify themselves as legitimate guys. But in order to be taken seriously, I think that the Heat have to win this series in no more than 5. I think the Pacers have enough ability to push it to 7, but they're going to have to win this in 5 games in order for me to actually believe that they can beat a San Antonio team or Oklahoma City team in 7 games. I know I rambled on a bit, but that's my take. Larry Jenkins, Blazing Sports Support. Let me know what you guys think. I'll holler at y'all. It's always great to hear you guys comment on this. Make sure you on Facebook, Blazing Sports Support. Look that up. Like that. Send me comments there. Twitter, follow me, Blazing Sports. I'll respond to anybody. You follow me, I follow back, all that other good stuff. You got a page, I like it. You got a YouTube thing, let me know. I'll watch your videos. I'll give you my take. Larry Jenkins, Blazing Sports Support. I'll holler at y'all. Peace.